Yeah. Well, there's that too, but I mean, when you don't know how to do something, I find following a script fairly easy, but I find following a video difficult. Might be my age. I actually think that would probably be. I'm actually not too bad at that, although I know this room is really terrible for it. And I do have some sympathy with you guys because I know that looking up here and then looking down and looking up, it's really easy to get lost, get behind a step or two. So one of the things, most of you are pretty good at it, but yell at me to slow down or do it over.
That's why I look up and look down, always lost. So when I go back to the video,
yeah. I wish we had a better, two things would, well, I'm not sure if it would be, two things might be good. And it is actually possible if we really wanted to play with it. One would be to share the screen with everybody so that it's on your computer. But then that makes it really hard for you to type. It is possible with the Google Hangouts, if we made them live and everybody joined the Hangout, you could have the Google Hangout in a window and you could have this going too. Yeah, it probably would crawl even more than it's crawling now. But it isn't the ideal room for this because of the way everything, it would be ideally all of your computers, well, actually if they faced me, you couldn't see over your computer, so that's a different issue. I don't know if you can think of an ideal layout. Anyway, here we are. It is recording now. I think when my thing popped out last time, it killed the video because all the you have pictures of is actually of a Google logo. So I'm going to do a new database. And I did that by just right-clicking on databases and doing a new database. So this database like TestDB, name it whatever you want. I wanted to show you there's a couple of different aspects of this. There are two files. If you do nothing else, you always have two files. All right, you have a database file and you have a log file. Does anybody know what's in the database file? I said it before. Schema information too, which means structures, all the relationships, pretty much the entire database is in the database file. Okay. What about with the log?
It's not all the transactions and changes that have been made.
Right, it's all the transactions since the last backup, basically. Maybe even more if you didn't truncate. So it keeps track of all the transactions. Now, every database has those two files. There's things that you can do. Like this one says 3 and 1. This is because I haven't set any options. And this is coming from the model database in the system. So it says that your initial size is 3. It says that your log file is 1 megabyte to start with. It will grow. This one grows by 1 megabyte. The data file grows at 1 megabyte at a time. All right, so it'll grow as it needs it. Bytes of empty nothing, right? So it'll keep adding stuff to that 3 megabytes until it reaches a limit. Then it will add it 1 megabyte at a time. That's actually not too, you can change that, right? Defaults. 10% is a little dangerous for the log. Is right now it's 1 megabyte, 10% it is big. But when it is 1 terabyte, 10% is a huge. So percentages can be a little bit dangerous. Now you could do that even with, you could do it in percents if you want. Again, it's a little bit dangerous because the bigger the file goes, the bigger the chunk for the next one, right? And one of the things with relational databases is that, you will typically run up against disk space issues at some point. one of the advantages of a NoSQL database is that they don't care where the file is. So all the data is stored in a file or a cluster of files, which we're going to in a NoSQL database. They can be stored anywhere. So it doesn't care. This space is less crucial because you can work easier than you can. Okay, the other thing that it has is it has the path to the files, which you can change, and you can give the file a name separate from the default if you want. Default is just to name it testdb mdf or testdb log. A couple of other options I want to show you in here. So this is, there are lots of options here. You can, again, most of whether these are true or false and the size of things are dependent on the model, but you can change all of them. Most of them you probably wouldn't want to change. I'm just looking, you certainly don't want to make it read-only. You could look through them if you want. The main things I want to talk about are the coalition. You know what the coalition is?
Is it the character encoding?
Notice all these languages? This is under options. So you can put it in when you want. Now by default, it knows when we installed it, it went for the English, United States English. There are things that happen with this. It doesn't limit you to the language that the coalition is, by the way. I could write in Greek or Hebrew or something inside this if I wanted to, or Japanese, even though its coalition is American English. Right? That's just what it's going to default to. You do have to do a little bit of extra to write in another. You have to explicitly say you're in Unicode when you do the other character sets. Coalition gives you, or if you're in the United States, that means your money's in dollars. Whatever. If you're in England, your money will be in pounds.
So in some sense, it also controls the locale.
Yeah, coalition's related to locale. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention was there's three of them there. There's full, bulk logged, and simple. Full means that every transaction you make will be logged in the log. All right, that's actually the safest because if you want to recover later, and when we do backup and recovery, I'll show you. We'll go through this. You probably want full logging. Why? Anybody have an idea why you wouldn't want full logging?
You're doing a lot of things.
You're doing a lot of things, and your log files get gigantic. So if you have space issues, so there's full logging. One is that your database doesn't change very often, so it's just you don't need it. Another is if you're doing an awful lot and you just don't have room, physical room for those files, because they can get gigantic. I mean, really gigantic, terrible. But if you don't do full logging and you have a total system crash, recover all your transactions. Does that make sense? When we do backup and recovery, full is your best option if you've got the space. Bulk log means that it basically, as I understand it, does it have now? I need to look up bulk log to make sure that I've got that right. I think what it does is it skips bulk uploads, right? It logs all your transactions except the ones that you bulk load. But I'm not, I need to look that up to make sure I got that right. Simple just doesn't log anything at all, which means that if you crash, you're screwed.
The why do they call it simple at all instead of none?
You can't even back up your database if you're on simple. Well, you can't log backup.
Bulk log means that it skips bulk loads and what was the other part?
The full. Let me look on bulk log right there. All right, and then the other thing we're going to play with and files. So this is getting down to kind of the physical level of databases, right? How when you're setting them up, you really need to figure out what you're going to do with your files and where you're going to put things. There's always a primary file group, right? That's literally your primary one. That's where everything starts. And then you can, if you want, you can break up things into other logical groupings. And you can separate these file groups onto different drives if you want. You can separate a relational database onto separate drives, but it's still a lot more rigid than the typical NOS. So let's add a file group, and we need to give it a name. Anybody have a name for it? What? Hoffman?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's always Hoffman. Expendable.
Hoffman group. So, and I'll add one more file group. Now this adding these file groups and then adding files to the file groups creates more complexity, especially when you try to do things like when you back up a file group that or a database that has multiple file groups, you have to explicitly list every file group when you do the backup, right? So it's a lot harder than when you're just listing it, backing it up with one file.
Do you
group.
add a file to the file group?
Yeah.
How do you use this window to do that?
We actually will go to a different window. I'll show you in just a second. One more group. Anybody? So we got Hoffman. I don't know why you would name it Hoffman, but that's all right. You would name them something that means something. Now, one of the things, though, with SQL Server, you have no control over what data, unless you partition tables, which we'll do eventually. If you partition tables, you have some control, but in general, it decides. SQL Server decides what goes where.
What would be a realistic name for a group?
Well, so
I haven't understand what you mean by a group.
a group is literally just a logical grouping of files. So you might, so if you're putting them on different servers, for instance, like you're spreading your files on different servers, then, you know, what server around here? Server 32 groups, server whatever. Something that means something, probably.
Or like AWS region, like West Data Center, East Data Center.
Yeah, you could do something like that, you know. If you're... So anyway, we've got our file groups. And then I'm back to general, and then down here where it has, we have our test and a log, I'm going to add. And I'm going to, what do I want to call it? Test DB 2. Oops, not add 2. And instead of primary here, I can go and I can choose which group it's going to go. Now, before you can choose groups, you have to create the file. Before, you know, the file groups have to pre-exist before you can put files in them. And then I'm going to do one more. Now, there can only be one log file. You can have as many as you want, but there can only be one log file. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I pressed OK.
Oh.
I don't know.
If you press it, so just right click on the database again. Actually, right click on the test database. And then just do properties. You click right click on it. And then do properties. That was dialog. And then go back to, yeah. Now, again, I'm just showing you how to do time that we're really going to have to do. There's a couple of times we'll have to do it. Partitioning is one of them, because you can't partition a table unless you have files and file groups to put it on. And we'll be doing that later. But I just wanted to show you this and get the idea of files. So let's add one more so that we have, I'll just call it testdb3. And you can have more than one. You can have more than one file per file group. Do the David group, whatever. All right. Before the owner, by the way, is default means whoever owns the database, whoever's created the database. And it's usually DBO. I'm going to script this. I'm not going to do OK yet. I just want to show you. You can, in all of these diagrams, it's got all of our file groups, and we've got our primary. TestDB3 is another. It has all these different files, and it says which. Does it say which file group? Yeah, it says which file group they go on. It also has all of those defaults. Right, and it just scripts the defaults pretty much. But that's the text version of this, right, the SQL version. So the way you do that is, and you can do this with docs in Google, you can just script it. And that would, the advantage of that is movable. You can take that script and you can read somewhere else. I'll just do OK now. Now, for the most part, as I said, unless you're explicitly partitioning, even though you've split the files up across multiple groups, you don't have a lot of control over where SQL Server is at. The advantage of splitting it up into multiple groups is that the individual files may be smaller. Does that make sense? Instead of having a terabyte file, you might have several gigabyte files. You know? And that can improve performance to have smaller physical files. Question on that before, because there's not a lot of other stuff in the first assignment besides that. You can see there's all of this that you can do, right? I'll show you that because it would fail if I execute it because the database already exists. A couple of other ways to create a database. I did testDB, testDB2. That's all you have to do to create a database if you want. Says that it's did it, and I go over here and I do refresh, and I have a test DB2. Now, if you don't have to provide any arguments, that means you get an exact copy of the model, right? So it'll have that one file that has 3 megabytes, and the other one, the log that has 1 megabyte initially, and it will, all those defaults are just there. And the files will go to wherever the default file system is, right? Now, you can also, if you wanted to direct it, and then I'll let this go, create base. I'm going to have lots of databases. DB3. See if I remember. So I think actually the first one, and I think it's file equal where the file is going to go, single quotes, Oh, and then I think it goes to program files. I should just go get the path. Tell you what, I am going to just go get the path. I am going to go to this PC, local save, program files, Microsoft SQL Server.
Is it program files or?
It's program files. And then I'm going to do it DB3. About this too much.
Why should we know more about this?
Well, because where if you need to do, no, what is it not like? Oh, it's file name. Your file. Now, what is it not like? Oh, double quotes. It should be a single quote. Okay. And then I think I want and the log. I'm just looking at this. So it has those things in their file group. And then log on. That's what I was looking for, log on. You can tell I don't do it this way very often. And I'm just going to copy this and just change the ending. You know what makes you could do it to make it a lot easier. And then instead of test, I'm going to do testb3_log, and it's LDF. Although the extensions are ignored. Why does it not like log on? Oh, because I put a comma there. Here, let me make it. Again, this is if you wanted to manually place the files. I could, if I wanted to, I could put them on C, just like C temp or something. You know, you don't have to put them in the default folders. In fact, generally you wouldn't. So if I run that, that should work. Oh, no comma on that.
Did you change for the second one? All you changed
I didn't like it.
Yeah, it says that it needs a create.
your database statement.
How does it create database?
Oh, no, copy the top and top.
Oh, name. Let's look at something here. I was thinking there was a name. Name equal, yeah. So I have file name, but I forgot name. And it likes the N in front of that. Anybody know what the N stands for? What? I think I can break this line like that. I think it'll work now. Yeah. Creating databases, I tend to just do this and set properties later. or use the GUI for that. That's one of the only things I use the GUI for. It is if I need to set up a lot of complicated stuff. It's easier to do it in the graphical interface than this way, but this isn't terrible. It's just a file path that's really terrible. Okay, so that's create database. Questions on creating databases? It's not hard. The file groups, as I said, this is just sort of a real quickie introduction to those. We'll play with them a little bit when we do partitioning, which may be as soon as next week, because it's an early one. I'll give you a minute on this. If you want to get rid of databases,
Are you gonna put this on the blog?
I can. Yeah. And I think it's videotaping too, but I can put this on the blog. Yeah, I could maybe even do it now. If you want to get rid of a database, you can just do drop database. So I could say drop database test db2. And that should be gone. And if I refresh over here, db2 is gone. And I could do the same with db3. And that's actually really scary if you think about it. Notice there's no, are you sure? This is why it's dangerous to go in with full admin powers. You can drop an object and it won't blink. It'll just say, oh, okay. Wow, I just lost 300,000 records.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
Actually, I pay database failed.
I don't know. You're probably that the path is wrong.
No, the first one already failed. I will try this. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, you had duplicates of the community assist.
Yeah.
If you done the one with underscore, you get some level.
You say.
Yeah, or you could have just reloaded it, but that was a question that is, you would be either in the oh crap stage or you, yeah, or you'd be out there with a cardboard sign saying will work.
I will try this one, yeah, because
Yeah, they're probably backups somewhere. It's an important database. Yeah, and you might keep something, have it spit out the script and then you refresh it. So then, yeah, you got that, and then all the ones from like back in.
Yeah.
So you this thing here.
It doesn't need this one on this one.
You need to create it. So
I
there's
would almost say
groups and files, and
just close it.
then you make it a member of the group.
No, so we open the.
We can ask you about that.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm getting there also.
What is your,
Data file, 3
oh, because it already exists. All this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Let's look at,
No.
yes, has to be, you were trying to do test.
Yeah.
and if you can drop that testing.
Yeah, it looks like it's got.
Yeah.
Did any of you else get permission errors?
No.
It shouldn't. No, it just says permission. Create file and oh, you know that the slide. So let's see what you got here. Invalid use without compiling. Where main file, oh, you need a comma between this and file. Close the parameter. Okay. Name change. Yeah, it says it. You can only create a database once and then, but if I were to look, so my test DB3, if I look at the properties, you know, it has my 2 files, additional file. The owner, notice it's not just default, it's actually, you would all have to be. Look at these, this one I'm fine. Okay. All right, look, yeah. Question. I think so. So let's look at the homework
You gotta
again.
detach the
There's a
database from the
detach.
server.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can attach it. So we did do attach. B3, let's detach it. So if you it's not done all that often, actually, because SQL Server is very server files are in place. They're not often development thing. Try to copy it now. Let me do that before I move it. I'm going to go to the file folder. I'm going to do real quickly file extensions. All right, so this is the actual database file. It says I can copy it, but if I go now to like the desktop and try to paste it, it will say, well, we'll need administrator permission, so it's fine, I'll continue. It should fail. It can't be completed because the file is open in SQL Server. Even if you're not using the database, that's going to be the thing. You can't copy or move the server. So if I go and I say and then detach. Don't check any of these things. Just detach it. If you check drop, just detaching it, you're destroying it. So don't do that. So I'm going to do OK. All right, so it's no longer in the list over here. And if I wanted to go to the files, let's go back to the here. I'm going to copy it again. I'll go back to the desktop. I will continue. And oh, it still didn't. Did I get the wrong file? Yes, I did. I got the wrong one. I went for testDB instead of testDB.
And where are you pasting it?
Just test. Now it pastes fine, right? You can move a file once you've detached it. Now, if I want to reattach it, I just right-click. Notice attach is your second option. So I'm going to do attach. I'm going to add. Now, if it's not in the default place, you might have to go browse for it. I'm going to do get the test DB3. Going to do OK. Shows me the log file down here. So I'm going to do OK. I'll go through that again.
Yep.
I'll detach and reattach again.
Are we doing? I'm trying to figure out which one of them.
I was doing DB. Matter once when you detach both files. And into another database, it's easiest to take both files. It is possible to recreate the database to create the log. You can say on attach, create log. So I'm going to tasks, detach. I'm detaching it again. And again, you can script this if you want. And then I'm going to do OK. So this is all you have to do to detach. It has a stored procedure. All right, and then to reattach it, you have to go up to databases now because the test DB3 is gone. Attach, add. There is like you can browse if it's somewhere else. A couple of things. You cannot have the file in a profile specific folder. You can't have it on desktop, or you can't have it in my documents. Something that is general to the basically the root of a folder. Yeah.
Is that because the file is being accessed as a SQL user and not your own user?
Yeah, I think so. Now it's available to anyone that has permissions on that machine, whereas if it was in a profile specific place. I think it is, it's just that it runs at, it runs as a service at root. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of. So I'm going to get test DB3 again. Now it's only the MDF file here, but again, when I say OK, notice it also brings up the log. There is a thing you can do if the log is not there. But we'll worry about that later. I'm going to script this again just so you can see it. I've done that before. There are times to work from the, but this is almost always works. You don't have to. Just I'll post all of these, but they're just I'm just letting it scripted. One other thing I'll show you before this, I don't think it's on the assignment, but I'll show it, and then I'll let you guys work for a while. I'm really tired of talking. And then we'll maybe do the indexes, and then we'll be done for the day, which will probably actually take a little while. So I'm going to, I won't do it with Metro Alt. I'll do it with Community Assist. I'm going to write tasks. A lot of the key menus are under tasks. And I'm going to generate scripts. This is another way to move a database. So I'm going to do generate scripts. And it gives you this wizard. It tells you that there's 4 steps to it and etc. So I'm going to do next. And Community Assist, it knows that that's the database. It says to script the entire database and all. If you don't want that, you select specific objects to script. To do next, and you I'm just going to save this to the new query window. But you can save it to a file. You can publish it to a web service. There's lots of different things you can do. I'm also going to click on Advanced. And in the Advanced, you have lots of options. One of the things that's probably most important is types of data to script. It says schema only. What that means is that by default, it will only script the structure of the tables. It's not script the content data. And that's actually usually what you do want, because if you script the data, if there's a lot of data, which are populated by writing C# loops, which is why when we use it eventually, some of the data may not make super good sense. I mean, I tried to make the data make sense with all these, but it didn't always. But there are like 400,000 the tables. Interesting, those scripts, in terms of optimization, some of those scripts took 3 days to run. They're the poster child for unoptimized scripts. Anyway, if you were to script the data in Metro Alt, you'd have something the size of a fairly thick novel in your script. So you generally don't want to script the data, but we can for here. Okay. And then next, just a confirmation, and then it will run this. And so it did all of those things. And here is, let's go find our scripted right here. Couple of things. But right at the beginning is where it's probably going to fail when you give it to somebody else. These files, these file names may be not duplicated on the machine you're going to. So what I typically do is I do create database and I kill everything. So I'm going to go down to use community assist, and I'm going to cut all that out, and then it works just great. Unless you have multiple files and file partitions, then you have to be.
I'm trying to load scripts for other databases, and it's not working out as easy as it is for communities.
So what script?
So if I wanted to do Metro Alt.
Task, generate scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And next.
And what? Entire, right?
That'd be fine. The data on that one. You get like 400 pages of script.
Okay, so just do this.
Yeah.
All right, and then you go and change something.
Well, that's where I added the data. If you're just going to do the schema, you don't have to go there. The default is just to do the schema.
Okay, I thought that you had changed something in the advance.
I did for the community assist. I did schema and data for it. But I didn't, you wouldn't want to do that for Metro Alt.
Can I have to see the last part?
Okay, so when you review,
Yeah, I'm going to kill this and do it again.
you click finish, and then I didn't
Yeah.
understand why you deleted the first lines.
Because they were machine-specific file paths,
Okay.
and they may not copy to another machine.
Okay.
I've had them fail a lot. So I'll go through the community assist one again real quickly.
Okay.
So one thing is you don't script database as, right? That just gives you the create database. That's all it gives you. You have to go to tasks, generate scripts. It's all sort of here, but going through the wizard again, script the entire database, although you can select what you want, right? So you may only want a few pieces of it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, instead of save to a file, I've saved to a new query window. under the advanced, this is again, if you want the data, there's schema and data. And again, you be careful with that because, as I said, you could end up semantic. This is just to confirm everything. And then if you run it, it creates the script again. And then if I, this is, he said, is I, because this says, you know, specific path.
Yes.
And all the rest of this stuff, all these alter databases under it, they're what you get if you say nothing. So if I delete that, I get everything that was there, but I don't have any conflict stuff. If your machines are identical and your versions are identical, then the file paths might work, right? So if I gave you the full thing from here to there, it probably would work. But if you go to your machine and if anything's different, if you have a slightly different, a newer or older version of SQL Server, then all of that file path stuff starts to get a mess because the file path is version specific. Yeah. Do you have a question? Right, so we basically done, I mean, the assignment is it's just to create some file groups. And, you know, let me look real quickly at bulk to make sure I explained it.
You included everything for the containment, and so you deleted all the altered database stuff.
Yeah, and I started it down to you. If you have the book, there's a, you know, all of that is in here. So bulk option log, which reduces the size of the transaction log. And unlike the full bulk, only restore, you can only restore to the end of any backup. You cannot restore to a moment in time. That's a big, one of the only ways you can recover a database if you make a horrible mistake is restore from backup and then restore the log up until the moment before you made your horrible mistake. If you, with bulk logging, you can't do that. You can only restore the whole log. I think the idea of not logging the bulk log stuff is that you can repeat it. You can just run the log, the bulk stuff. I'll give you, I don't think this is going to take very long, but I'll give you like, how long do you want? 15, 20 minutes? 5 minutes?
10 minutes now. Pictures of the scripts loaded for each one.
You don't need scripts. I don't think that's for scripts. So 11 days.
It just says load them run it.
No, so those were just to get the databases into the data. I mean, when I originally wrote this, I figured now would be the time instead of yesterday.
So we already did that.
Yeah, we already did that.
So did we do, we
So
already did
11
it.
is unnecessary.
Actually, did it one already?
Yes, you don't have to do those.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's just create the file groups. 10, 15 minutes should be quite enough.
WordPad works better than Word for
Yeah.
you. Oh, it does?
Well, it doesn't matter. WordPad is code.
On point 6,
Yeah.
What do you mean by save the database? Do we just create it, or do you want to go export?
Oh, no, I just meant one, I'm assuming you're doing this in the graphical tool. So save the database is just click OK. You want to do it after you get the pictures, otherwise it's gone. Although you can always get it back by right-clicking and viewing
This time I
properties.
use one of these screenshots. Nothing else.
I'm actually already.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah. Nothing.
I noticed almost everybody had their pictures up for install. So the more interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just create it and look at it.
Well, so a file like,
You already have it in 26.
so when you create the database, when you add some files, so add a, probably add a,
Then go to general.
create a file groups.
Because my PC.
Yeah.
On the PC.
I don't. Just download it.
And you created it up. And then,
We had it before.
One
you
moment.
create a new file group and add a file group. File group. It's mostly just wanting to know how to do it. I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, okay, so also this class is on the phone, so you go to SQL Server Express, that will give you
Yeah. I should have it. I can choose
So if you want to look at your file groups for a database that you created, how do you go into that
Right.
without creating a folder?
Right-click on the database and choose properties.
If you
Yeah, and then you have your.
some.
So yeah, just click
Yeah,
OK.
it's a top.
Created, yep. And then separate that, you go into that. I just prefer to.
I'm going to stop the video for this one and we'll do a new one for the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
part.
yeah. Don't use any of that.